The desert sun was falling low behind the red cliffs when the cowboy found the old trail that led between the rocks. The air was hot, the wind dry, and the sand carried the scent of smoke from somewhere far. He had been riding since sunrise looking for lost cattle, but now he could tell something was wrong. His horse snorted and turned its ears toward the canyon. Then he heard it. A faint sound, not of wind, not of an animal, but of someone crying. He pulled the reins and listened again. The sound came once more, weak and broken, like someone trying to call out but too tired to speak. The cowboy's heart tightened. He stepped down from his horse, tied the reins to a scrub tree, and followed the sound. Between two large rocks hidden under the shadow, he saw a young Apache woman lying on the ground. Her dark hair was tangled with dust, her clothes torn at the edges, her skin burned by the sun. One of her legs was caught under a fallen rock. For a moment he just stood there, surprised and unsure what to do. The Apache tribes did not often welcome strangers, especially cowboys. But she was hurt, badly hurt. She lifted her head slowly, her eyes full of fear and pain, yet also pride. "Please," she whispered in a broken voice. "Help me. I am trapped." He knelt beside her, feeling the heat of the rock. He tried to move it, but it was too heavy. It had rolled down from the hillside, probably when the windstorm came through earlier. Her leg was pinned tight, and the cowboy could see she had been there for hours, maybe since morning. "Easy now," he said softly. "Don't move. I'll try to get it off you." He pushed his shoulder against the rock, dug his boots into the sand, and strained. The rock didn't move. He tried again, putting all his strength into it, but it was like the earth itself had locked her there. Sweat ran down his face, and the woman closed her eyes, whispering something in her own language. Maybe a prayer, maybe a goodbye. Finally, he stopped and sat down beside her. "It's stuck fast," he said quietly. "You've been here long?" "Since the sun rose," she said weakly. "My horse fell. I fell too. The rock rolled. I cannot move." He looked at her leg. It was pale and swollen, her foot almost blue. He knew she was losing blood flow and time was running out. He had seen things like this before, during long cattle drives when wagons broke or people got caught under wheels. If she stayed trapped much longer, she might not live through the night. He looked back toward the horizon. No one was coming. It was miles to the nearest ranch or settlement. The thought made him feel sick inside. She saw the look in his eyes and understood. "You must go," she said faintly. "Leave me here. I will die with the earth." "It is better." He shook his head. "No. No one dies alone out here if I can help it." For a long time, neither of them spoke. The desert wind whistled softly around the rocks, carrying bits of dust that glittered in the last light of the sun. Then she turned her face toward him again, her eyes tired but steady. "If you cannot move it," she said slowly, "you must cut." "My leg," the cowboy's breath caught. "No," he said instantly. "That's not an option." "You must," she said, her voice shaking. "If you do not, I die, please. I beg you." Her words hit him hard. He looked away, fighting his own thoughts. She was just a woman, a stranger, yet she was brave enough to ask for something like that. She didn't cry, didn't scream. She only looked at him with quiet desperation, her lips trembling from pain. He looked at his belt knife, then back at her. "Listen," he said gently. "There's got to be another way. Let me think." He stood up and went to his horse, searching his saddlebag. He found a small shovel, some rope, and a canteen. He poured water over the sand around the rock to make it softer, then dug as best he could near her leg. Each time he loosened a bit of earth, she gasped from the movement, but he kept going. Night was coming fast, and the light faded. He worked until his hands were raw and his breath came heavy. The rock finally moved just enough that her leg shifted free by an inch. He pushed harder, and at last the heavy stone rolled away with a thud. The woman gasped, clutching her leg. He knelt beside her again. "You're free now," he said, voice shaking with relief. But his joy didn't last long. Her leg was twisted badly, deep bruised, and swollen beyond what he had hoped. She tried to move, but pain shot through her body and she fell back against the sand, tears running down her cheeks silently. "Don't move," he said quickly. "Let me see." He tore a strip from his shirt and wrapped it around her leg to stop the swelling. Then he gave her water, holding the canteen gently to her lips. "You saved me," she whispered, her voice small. "Why?" He looked at her for a long moment, unsure what to say. "Because no one deserves to be left behind," he finally said. She watched him quietly, her dark eyes softening a little. You are a strange man, she said, half smiling despite her pain. Most cowboys would have left me. Maybe, he said, adjusting his hat, but I'm not most. He built a small fire near the rocks and gave her his blanket. The stars came out one by one, bright and cold above them. The night wind carried a chill, and he sat near the fire, glancing at her from time to time. She lay still, her face calm now, though the pain had not gone. After a while she spoke again, her voice soft and thoughtful. My name is Tala, she said. It means wolf, he nodded. Nice name. I'm Eli. Eli, she repeated slowly as if trying to remember it. You are far from your home? He poked the fire with a stick. Home's wherever my horse stops, he said. Guess that makes the desert home for now. She smiled faintly, then closed her eyes. He could tell she was drifting toward sleep, her breathing slower now. He stayed awake, watching the fire and the shadows dancing on the rocks. Every so often he looked at her leg, worried it might get worse before morning. At dawn, the light crept across the desert, painting everything gold. He packed up his things and helped her drink more water. She could not walk, but he could carry her to the horse. She protested at first, embarrassed, but he only smiled. Don't argue, he said. You'd do the same for me if it was the other way around. She looked at him, her eyes shining with quiet respect. Yes, she said softly. I would. He lifted her gently and placed her across the saddle, then led the horse through the canyon step by step, careful not to jolt her leg. The morning air was cool and the desert stretched far and empty before them. After an hour, she spoke again, her voice weak but steady. I thought I would die there, she said. When you came, I thought you were a spirit. He laughed softly. No spirit, just a man with bad luck finding trouble. Not trouble, she said quietly. A reason. He glanced at her, curious. A reason for what? She looked away toward the horizon. To keep living. He didn't answer. He just kept walking. The sound of the horse's hooves soft against the sand, the sun rising higher behind them. The desert had tried to take her, but somehow they had both survived. By the time they reached the open plain, Eli knew one thing for sure. This was not the end of their story. It was only the beginning. The morning sun rose higher as Eli led his horse slowly across the open desert. The Apache woman, Tala, rested across the saddle, weak but alive. Her face was pale from pain, and every step the horse took made her flinch softly. But she did not complain. She only held on, her eyes fixed on the horizon. Eli knew it was a long way to his ranch, maybe half a day's ride, but he couldn't go faster. Her leg was bad, and the horse was already tired from the climb through the canyon. He kept glancing at her, worried she might faint again. You still with me? He asked gently. Her lips moved. Yes, she whispered. I am trying to stay awake. Good, he said. Don't you give up now. We'll make it. He stopped once to give her water, lifting the canteen to her lips. She drank a little, then looked at him with quiet eyes. You could have left me, she said. Why did you not? Eli smiled a little. Maybe because I've seen too much leaving in my life, he said. Didn't want to add one more. She didn't speak again, but her eyes softened. There was something new between them, not just gratitude, but an understanding, quiet and deep, born from the desert and the fire of the night before. By the time the sun stood high, the landscape began to change. The sharp rocks turned to rolling sand, and in the distance the faint shape of a fence line appeared. Beyond it, a cluster of low wooden buildings, Eli's ranch. When they reached the gate, Eli whistled, and two ranch hands came running out. One of them, an older man with gray hair, stopped in shock when he saw the woman. Eli, what in heaven's name happened? He said. She's hurt, Eli said shortly. Got trapped under a rock. We need to get her inside. The men exchanged uncertain glances. It wasn't common for an Apache woman to be brought into a white man's ranch. But Eli's tone left no room for argument. They helped him lift her gently from the horse and carry her inside the small wooden house near the corral. Eli laid her carefully on his bed, the only one in the cabin. Her face was pale, her breathing slow. He fetched water, cloth, and some old herbs from the kitchen shelf. The older ranch hand, Hank, stood in the doorway. Eli, he said in a low voice, you sure about this? Folks won't like it if they hear. I don't care what folks like, Eli said, his jaw tight. She's a person. She needs help. That's all that matters, Hank sighed. You've got a kind heart, boy. Just don't let it get you into trouble. Eli gave a small smile. Too late for that. He turned back to Tala and cleaned her wound carefully, She flinched but didn't cry out. Her courage amazed him. Most people would have fainted long ago, but she only watched him quietly, her eyes following his hands. When he finished wrapping her legs, she whispered, "Thank you, Eli." He nodded. "You rest now. You're safe here." Days passed. Tala stayed in the cabin, her legs slowly healing. Eli brought her food and water, checked the bandages, and sat near her when the nights grew cold. At first she spoke little, shy and unsure. But as time went by, she began to talk more about her tribe, her family, and the world beyond the mountains. "My people believe everything has a spirit," she said one evening as the fire burned low. "Even the wind and the rocks. They say if you listen long enough, you can hear them speak." Eli smiled. "What do they say?" She tilted her head slightly. "They say the world is not cruel, only strong. It gives and takes, but it never forgets kindness." He looked at her thoughtfully. "Then I guess I hope the world remembers this kindness of yours too." She looked surprised. "Mine? Yeah," he said softly. "For trusting me. You didn't have to." Her eyes met his, and for a moment neither of them spoke. Outside, the desert wind sighed through the wooden boards, soft and lonely. Weeks passed. Her leg grew stronger. She could stand now, though only for a few moments at a time. Eli built her a small walking stick and showed her how to move carefully. One afternoon, as she stood by the window watching the sunset, she said quietly, "I will have to go soon." Eli's chest tightened. He had known this moment would come, but he hadn't wanted to face it. "You sure you're ready?" he asked. She nodded. "My tribe will be looking for me. They will worry." He nodded slowly, his heart heavy. "Then I'll take you back myself." Her eyes widened. "No, it is too dangerous. The land between here and my village is not safe." "I've been through worse," he said lightly. "Besides, you can't walk all that way alone." She looked at him for a long time, then gave a small nod. "You're stubborn, cowboy," he chuckled. "That's what my horse says too." The next morning they packed what little they needed and set out before sunrise. Tala sat behind him on the horse, holding on gently as they rode. The air was cool, the sky painted pink and gold. For a while, they rode in silence, listening to the sound of hooves against the dry earth. "Eli," she said quietly, "when I was trapped under the rock, I thought I would die. I prayed to the spirits to send someone, but I never thought it would be you." He smiled faintly. "Maybe the spirits have a strange sense of humor." She laughed softly, the sound light and warm. "Maybe. Or maybe they knew we would understand each other." He looked over his shoulder at her. "Understand?" She nodded. "You live alone in this wild land, same as me. You know how it feels to have the world forget you." Her words struck something deep in him. He didn't answer, just kept his eyes on the horizon. By evening, they reached the foothills where her tribe once camped. Smoke rose from far away, a sign of people. Tala's face lit up with hope and fear. "This is where I must go," she said softly. Eli slowed the horse and stopped near a cluster of rocks. She slid down carefully, leaning on her walking stick. For a moment she stood there, the wind lifting her dark hair, her eyes filled with emotion. "Thank you, Eli," she said, her voice trembling slightly. "You saved my life." "I will not forget," he smiled gently. "I didn't do it for thanks." "I know," she said. "That is why I will never forget." She turned to walk toward the distant camp, limping slightly but strong in spirit. He watched her go, his chest tight with something he couldn't name. When she looked back one last time, their eyes met. Two souls from different worlds who had shared one impossible journey. Then she was gone, disappearing into the golden light of the setting sun. Eli sat on his horse, watching until she vanished beyond the ridge. The desert around him felt quiet, almost sacred. He didn't know if he would ever see her again. But he knew something inside him had changed forever. That night, as he rode home under the stars, he thought about her words, that the world remembers kindness. He smiled faintly, looking up at the endless sky. Maybe somewhere under those same stars, Tala was looking up too. And maybe, just maybe, the spirits of the desert were smiling at them both. The wind carried a soft whisper through the empty land, almost like a voice, not of sorrow but of peace. Eli tipped his hat to the horizon. "Safe travels, Tala," he murmured. Then he turned his horse toward home, the sound of hooves echoing through the vast, sleeping desert. a lonely cowboy and the memory of a brave Apache woman who had once begged for her life and found something far greater instead: hope. And though their paths had parted, the bond between them remained, strong as the land, quiet as the wind and eternal as the stars above.